All right, man. So DoorDash in 2024, is this a good option? Who's it a good option for? You've been doing it a lot longer than I have. I just started kind of part-time doing this. Been some good days, been some bad days. Before we jump into some of the bullet points, what's your overall experience or how has it been with DoorDash, considering you've done it for how long now?
So I've been doing it since like August of 2021. And I would say as a side hustle, it makes sense, but as a full-time gig, it doesn't make sense at all. It's just way too inconsistent. With the timing wise, there might be some days where at this time it's always busy. Like normally I would DoorDash around lunchtime. So, maybe between 11 and 1, dinner time when people are off work between 5 and 8 p.m. And it'll just be weird. Sometimes it'll be busy. Sometimes it won't be busy. So there's no knowing if you'll for sure make money at that time. Whereas with a full-time job, you'll for sure have the income. Even if, let's say, a store you're working at is not busy,
right?
It's not inconsistent like DoorDash would be.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I for sure noticed so far is very inconsistent. Like last night, I told you I did some DoorDash after work in the evening. My first hour, I made like 52 or 54 bucks. The last couple hours kind of leveled out. So I ended up averaging like 20 to 23 an hour, I think it was. 'Cause I think I DoorDashed altogether for like 5 hours after work. But there's been other nights where my first hour I make $6 and then, it stays half-ass dead throughout the whole night. Some nights, there was one night in particular, I made 6 hours the first hour, 12 hours the second hour. I was getting really frustrated. Then the last 2 hours, I made like 60 some dollars. So overall, I usually do 4 to 5 hour spans after work. And those 4 to 5 hours ended up averaging out decently well. But again, getting back to what you said, it's one of the biggest cons for me has been the inconsistency of, some nights you waste tons of time and gas and you don't get crap out of it. Other nights, it's kind of a home run. The other thing we should talk about, the tipping or lack of tipping, I should say, because if you don't get tips, man, I've noticed you're just making nothing.
Well, it's a big issue, and that's really frustrating to deal with because there's an area, obviously, of Bellevue that's in Washington.
Yep.
It's a very financially well-off area, Bellevue, Redmond. It's actually, I believe, probably one of the most expensive areas in the country. Mm-hmm. Medina's there, which is,
Medina,
extremely expensive. And I've done DoorDash deliveries in that area, and I noticed that you'd think people tip more in the richer areas, but it's almost like the people are cheap. Like they're kind of stingy and they don't tip at all.
Right.
Like there was many houses I'd pull up into, $3 million house with a Tesla on the driveway and like $0 tip.
And you're going, I'm getting paid now.
I'm like, what's the deal with this? And sometimes too is like a lot of these orders will be to apartments. And it's not only do you have to go to the location, but you have to buzz in to the apartment, then go to like whatever the 20th floor is, wherever the person is, drop the food off. And like you're spending another 5-10 minutes if you're doing an apartment order. Yep. And sometimes they don't tip, and it's frustrating. And people might say like, oh, well, why accept the order if you see the amount? But the thing is, DoorDash is not transparent in that, and they should be more transparent because it'll say, oh, this is guaranteed plus this. You don't know if that means 25 cents more. You don't know if that means $10 or $20 more. You don't know how much they're going to tip until the order's done. Mm-hmm. So it's like a guessing game almost, and it can be very frustrating.
What about, let's get into some of the pros. I would say for starters, one pro like we talked about is the barrier to entry is super low. Like for me to get started, I didn't have to do crap. I just downloaded the app, fill out a couple things, and you're off to the races. What do you think of that? The barrier to entry being low is one good, pro. I think that we've talked about making your own hours is a major plus for most people.
Well, like for me, I'm a full-time student right now. I'm going to graduate in the summer of 24. And for me, I don't really have the time to dedicate to a full-time, 20-hour, 40-hour a week job because my schedule is just so full with school.
Right.
And whereas, for example, like let's say if I'm doing class and I want to be like, oh, you know what? I have 2 hours free today. I want to make some money on the side. I can open DoorDash and do it that way.
Yeah.
But I feel like for people that don't have the time to dedicate to a full-time job and they just want to make some money on the side, it works pretty well. So the ease of use where you can just open the app and start it is really good. The other thing that I'm even surprised how kind of anonymous it is, once I made my account, I, of course, did my background check, everything. I was able to go, and within a day I was able to get started. And
yeah, me too. That's something I noticed. I was like, whoa, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And another pro I would say is obviously that kind of ties into conveniency. making your own hours and all this stuff. But the other pro is that there's really no obligation. You can not dash. Like tonight I didn't do any because we're doing this, but you can take time off. You could probably I know a girl that's been doing DoorDash for a long time, and she told me she's gone a month or two without doing it. They don't give a damn, it seems like. So it's I would say DoorDash is great for just a side hustle. But when you're going to try to do DoorDash full time, I feel like there's so many factors you don't control and you can't control that it can get extremely stressful and frustrating. Like if you have a horrible day and they're just the luck of the draw is that you're getting crappy orders, you're not getting tips. It can get, I can imagine it would get really frustrating when you're having a really bad day due to things you can't control at all.
Well, part of it too is like when you look at a lot of the orders on there is that sometimes the orders will be just stuff that doesn't make any sense at all. Like I've had some orders that's like $3 for 10 miles. Mm-hmm. And why it's so ridiculous. I mean, the price of gas right now, 3 years ago, It was like less, around $2 a gallon.
Huge
now
problem.
You're at like $5 a gallon for regular. And I mean, I also am a believer that if you don't have a car that gets really good mileage or drive an electric car, it almost doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to do it all just because of the price of gas is so ridiculous. And like, let's just do the math here. I mean, you don't have to be a math whiz to figure this out. If you're going to take a delivery for like $3 to $5 and drive 10 plus miles, you're going to spend damn near that in gas.
Right.
It's a waste of money and a waste of time.
I told you my first night my first night was horrible. I told you and my brother, I go, man, I ain't doing this shit anymore. This wasn't worth it at all because I think I dashed for 5 hours and it had me going all over Western Washington. Not all of West Washington, but around the greater Seattle area. And I was in White Center, Burien. I went to South Seattle. Then from South Seattle, being a low-income neighborhood, don't ever dash there because nobody was tipping in these low-income neighborhoods. Burien and White Center is low-income, but it's more like blue-collar, it feels like, and people here tip the best, in my opinion. Maybe not specifically, but the blue-collar people tend to tip the best for me anyways. But I was in South Seattle, then down to SeaTac. Like I said, I was driving my little fuel-efficient car that gets almost 40 miles per gallon, and I went 5 hours. I made like $34 or $37 with like no tips all night, and I wasted probably $30 in gas. So I was like, this is horrible.
Yeah, that's the other thing too is you have to decline. You can't accept every
That's
order.
what it was. I took everything the first night. I said, I want to have a good acceptance rate because I feel I'd be favored, but boy, they abuse you when you do that.
Yeah, you can't be accepting every order on there. And the other thing you said too that was interesting, you were saying that your car gets 40 miles a gallon. So that's good. Like, 40, 50 miles a gallon is like perfect. My Jeep that I drive, which is my primary car, gets like 20 miles a gallon. Yeah. So it really doesn't make sense. The only reason I really DoorDash is because in the household I live in right now, I live with someone that drives an electric car and they're okay with me DoorDashing in their car.
Yeah, that would be the way to do it.
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, with the amount of wear and tear, plus, routine oil change, all that kind of stuff, it just doesn't add up.
Right.
Yeah.
I think overall, like we said earlier, I think DoorDash, and nothing I'll touch on, I've seen some people that are more into it than I am that have said DoorDash is trying out different ways of pay, like in New York. I don't remember where I saw this or read this, and don't quote me, I might be wrong, but something to the effect of they're trying to do like a flat rate for all deliveries and then tips afterwards. But in my mind, I'm like, bro, nobody's going to go back into that app and tip afterwards, or they're not likely going to. I've had that happen actually quite a bit yesterday when I implemented a different strategy, which I'll touch on in a second. And it actually worked pretty well for me. I thought it would work, and it actually worked really well. But getting back to this topic, I'm not confident that the average person is going to get the delivery, and then when they're hungry, waiting anyways, and they're going to eat, and then go, let me wait a minute to go tip that guy. I don't see that happening.
No, I think it's pretty uncommon. I would say I've done well above 1,000 orders now since I started. I think the amount of times I've had people tip after the order's completed, probably like less than 4 times I can remember it happening, and once you have the food, it's like most people don't even leave a review. They don't even leave a review or not. So it's just like, I feel like if they implement that system, it would only be more of a detriment because like they already, with the price of gas, have, quite frankly, from what I've heard, a shortage of delivery drivers. So I don't really know why they'd want to do that. It just doesn't make
Here's what
sense.
I tried the other night, and I thought this might be worth doing. And it actually, I got three. I DoorDash for 4 hours last night, 4 to 4.5 hours, and 3 times I got an additional tip after the order was done. And all I did was when I got the delivery, when I accepted the order, when I got to the restaurant, I did like a copy paste. Hey, this is Devin with DoorDash. I just received your order. Just wanted to give. I forget how I worded it. Basically, I just said, hey, this is just giving you a heads up. This is Devin with DoorDash. Just keeping you updated. I'm waiting for your order right now. I'll let you know when I'm on my way. And then when I confirmed the order, got my car real quick, I said, hey, just updating you. I'm on my way now. And I looked at my GPS ahead of time. Should be there in 8 minutes, exclamation point. And again, this kind of is a headache to most people, but I did some little conversating and most of them replied, awesome, thanks, or whatever. And then afterwards, and also another thing that I'll put in there, I like to use their name as well. There was a good book I read called How to Win Friends and Influence People or something like that a long time ago, but they talked about how people's name is so important to them. So I felt like, as corny as this may sound, when I tried to connect with them through the app, giving my name and their name, personalizing it, and then I dropped it off and I confirmed it, and then I went back in before I drove away and said, hey, Anna, this is Devin with DoorDash. Just letting you know I left your food on the white chair next to the door. I hope you guys enjoy it. Have a great night or whatever. 3 times when I did that, they said this person added a $5 tip. That's that first hour. That's why I made like $53 I had a $5 tip additional, a $3 tip additional, and then a $2 tip additional, along with pretty good orders because there was like a promo in my area.
Well, I think the good communication is important and being friendly with the customers. Because I remember there was one time I did an order. Actually, it was a pretty low income part of like Kent. And I was thinking there's probably no way I'm going to get a tip for this. And I remember the guy was talking about how he was like playing on like Call of Duty Mobile on his phone. And it took him a bit to like come and get the order.
That's awesome.
But I was just like, I was just trying to start a conversation about like the Call of Duty, asking him if the new one was any good. And he literally just gave me like $10 cash extra just for being chilly. So I think that's a good strategy to be, to have good, really customer service, and everything can take you pretty far. Yeah.
I had somebody one time tell me recently, when I told them, hey, for a side hustle, I'm trying to do DoorDash. They said, yeah, but DoorDash is so saturated. And I say, well, step back a minute. Just like everything in life or whatever, business, whatever you want to extrapolate this, I think DoorDash is saturated. I would assume it's saturated with a lot of people doing it, but there is no overload of people going the extra mile like that and doing a great job and connecting with the customer like that. I would be willing to bet, I'm not going to say I guarantee because I don't know, I'd be willing to bet the vast majority of people doing DoorDash are not trying to connect with the customer, make them, like name to name basis. I like that guy. That guy, hey, that was a good kid. I like him. You know what I mean? I guarantee you that's going to help you in some way. I'm not guaranteeing you to make any specific money, but I guarantee you're going to leave a way better impression in that person's mind. And I'm willing to bet the vast majority of people doing DoorDash do not care about it. They're doing it for a side hustle. They have no vested interest. They don't probably want to be doing it. So I think that if you do take the time to go the extra mile like that, it probably will pay off I think it will pay off, but to some decent degree.
Yeah, I believe so. I certainly believe that a very small minority of drivers are doing what you're saying you were doing with that communication, the respect for the customer. Because I guess I've also ordered from DoorDash before, and I could tell you I've never had someone do that, be friendly enough. And I guarantee you if I would have had that kind of communication, I certainly would have added.
Yeah, like, what's up, Spiro? Yeah, this is so and so. Exactly. Like, I just connected with me. Like, I can see the name around there. I did that. I said, hey, Robert, I'm on my way. Like I said, hey, Robert, this is Devin. I'm waiting at the Ivor's restaurant right now. Just giving you a heads up. I'll let you know when I'm on my way. And I've like tried to act like I'm interested too. Like, exclamation points. And he's like, oh, wow, dude, thanks. And with an exclamation point, got in my car. Like I said, Robert, this is Devin, just updating you. I got the food. I'm on my way. I should be there in 8 minutes. I mean, they like that. He was super happy about that. And that's the guy that gave me like the $5 tip, either the 5 or the 3. And he already tipped decently well. So that guy's original tip was like $6. Plus he gave me like another 5 more. And there was, like I said, that promo. So that's how that first hour I killed it. Dude, I did like 3 deliveries and made $53 or $54.
Okay.
Yeah, it was probably the best hour I've ever had doing it. But maybe that was just coincidence, but I think that connection
I think so
probably
too.
helped.
I think it really helped. But something I wanted to touch on, because you mentioned like when you're at the restaurants, I wanted to touch on something which is definitely a con. Is sometimes the wait times for food
The
can
wait
be
time's awful.
pretty ridiculous.
That's one of the big cons. Yeah, I
know
can't believe we didn't talk about that
yeah,
yet.
like there's been some places like notoriously like Wingstop, Dick's Drive, and these kind of places that get super busy and packed, where you'll be there for like 20 plus minutes, even the food might not be ready. DoorDash has a system in place where if you're at a restaurant for more than 10 minutes, you can unassign it without getting a penalty on your account. But again, you're going to be wasting 10 minutes a day
I
for no
never
benefit.
unassign it. I never do because
Yeah.
I'm always like, I'm already here.
Yeah.
I've already lost this much time. Am I going to roll the dice and get a crappy order? And sometimes the wait times for me between orders have been crazy long, like 15, 20 minutes.
I remember one of my first times door dashing. I would have unassigned the order if I would have known, but this was like when I started out. There was this Chipotle, a Chipotle order, and I was in the Chipotle. It was the one in Issaquah, and there was just like at least 20 delivery drivers between Uber Eats and DoorDash there. And I don't know what the deal was, why they were so slow, but the manager decided to just close the kitchen to everyone and just said online orders only, because they were so packed and behind with the online orders that, you know, I would say there's some places that I strategically try to avoid, like McDonald's when it's late at night when only the drive-thrus open can get very busy.
You're
These kind of places,
subject to
Taco
that.
Bell,
Yeah, you're the victim of that. Yeah, you can't do anything about that.
Wingstop, you know, these kind of places that get very busy and are kind of just slow with orders as it is. You know, because you don't want to waste your time. You're already going to spend the time and the gas driving to the restaurant. You don't want to, you know, get nothing out of it or waste another 20 minutes of your day without getting paid for. You know?
Another thing we should probably say for everybody watching this right now, I would say kind of step back before you decide to do this and think about where you're going to be dashing at as well. Like you're more in the downtown area a lot of times. Your commute, I would imagine, is much less than mine, and you're probably way hotter. Like more orders. Like over here in like the neighborhood I'm in, I mean, there will be a decent wait time almost always between orders. It's never bang, bang, bang. I've thought about going downtown, but the downside here in Seattle, you know, parking horrible. There's nowhere to park. You got to double park and piss everybody off. You're almost guaranteed to have to go into elevators nonstop and everything. So there's pros and cons to everywhere, but I've noticed that some of the areas that are hot all the time tend to be the areas where I know the drive is going to be pretty treacherous between each order. So people probably don't want to dash there because you're wasting so much time and gas. The other thing I think, and I want to know what you think about this, usually when there's a promo going on somewhere like $2 extra, I don't go there. I feel like in my mind, everyone's fighting over those orders, and I get way better luck so far when like if there's a promo in North Seattle or South Seattle and I'm in the West Seattle area or whatever, I stay where there's not the promo because I think everyone's fighting over those orders, and I'm way busier in my experience when I don't go up there for the promos.
Well, promos are interesting, but I'm kind of the same way where I wouldn't go out of my way for a promo. Like if I'm in the kind of central or North Seattle area and let's say there's a promo in South Seattle or something like that, I'm not going to drive 10 minutes out of my way, because the thing is you might get there and by the time you get there, it's not busy anymore.
Right.
So that's, I'm on the same page with
also,
you.
I think try to get a somewhat of an understanding of how many people in your area are doing it. Because if you're in a city that's maybe not that many people doing it, it would be awesome. And the promos, off the top of your head, yeah, they are awesome. You make extra money on the orders. So yeah, don't just disqualify it. But I would say you need to kind of step back and think, is this worth it considering this area probably has a lot of dashers or whatever, or try it out. And if you're super cold, you'll know that most likely there's a lot of people fighting over those orders. All right. So in conclusion, what would you say? What's your final thoughts on this topic?
So my final thoughts on if DoorDash is a good side hustle in 2024 is if you have a car with good mileage or an electric car, if you're treating it as a side hustle and not a full-time job, I would say it's worth it. But if you're looking for something to do full-time, if you get a car that gets around like 20 miles per gallon with the price of gas right now being $5 a gallon, I think it'd be just a waste of time and money, and the wear and tear in your car just would not be.
The return on investment
the return on
terrible.
investment would be terrible, and you'd be better off just honestly finding somewhere to even work part-time if you need something on the side to do, or just finding a different side hustle, quite frankly.
Right. Yeah, I think I would have to agree. You pretty much wrapped it up pretty well. I would say that would be the summary of this all. I think it can be a great side hustle, but like you said, make sure your vehicle's fuel efficient. And yeah, that's a big one. Hey man, well, good video.